Hello everyone and welcome to day 472 since I took delivery of my Focus RS. Mileage at the moment since delivery is 17,312 and I've done 8,875 on my second engine. It's been 50 days since I was here at Goodwood on my track day. I edited all the videos, got those up, managed to have a family break in between which was long overdue. So today I'm going to talk about what happened and what I've learned. So just to recap, before the track day, what preparation did I do? Well, the main thing I did was gave it a thorough clean. It had 16,000 miles of grime on it. So I set to work on the car. I had a new jacking block which I bought to protect the seals when jacking the car up. So with the car up on stands, I gave all of the arches a thorough clean and also inspected the brakes just to see what I had left on them before the track day. The front still had about 7mm on them out of the 10 that they originally come with, and the rears were down to about 5 or so. So there was plenty left, or so I thought. And the brake fluid was still the original fluid that the car came with when it left the factory, so that was 14 months old. They recommend a change at 2 years, but at 14 months I thought the fluid should be okay. I checked the tyre tread. The front left had 6mm on it still. Now that was the one that had the most tread, well, apart from the back right, which was replaced because of a puncture, of course, which was a couple of months previous. But there was 6mm on the front left and plenty on all of the other tyres, the other two, the front right and the back left. The back right, of course, as said, was a puncture replacement, so that one pretty much had the full 8mm on it. And while I was checking it out, I saw what I really didn't want to see, and that was there was something stuck in the tread. Looked like a nail or something stuck in there. So panic stations a bit. I wasn't sure if it had gone through, whether it was going to give me a puncture. You never want to see something like that prior to a track day. Now I'd already ordered 4 new tyres, well 3 new tyres I mean, because of the new one on the back right, so I'd ordered 3 new tyres. So I went to the place that were going to be fitting them for me the day after the track day and had them have a look at it. The fitter there managed to pull the thing out and the tyre stayed up. It turns out to have been something about 10mm long. It'd gone in at an angle, so it hadn't penetrated the carcass, thankfully. Having got that done and being happy that the tyres were good for the track day, I then set about finishing the car off and preparing it. So gave the body a good clean, the wheels, the brakes, the engine bay, the interior, spent hours on it, and like I say, I had 2 days to do it, so it felt like a brand new car. To say I was excited about the day would be a massive understatement. I didn't get that much sleep that night, so I left Brighton early the next morning, was the first one there. Had the paddock all to myself at the beginning. There was no one in sight, but it wasn't long before others joined me. We all lined up for the noise test, got that done, made that through no problems. Then we had the safety briefing, and then I headed out for my first session. So how was it on track? How good is the Focus RS on track? It's been 2 years since I've done a track day, so I gently tiptoed my way around. I've only ever driven front-wheel drive cars on track before. So I found my way around for the first couple of sessions, then back in the paddock, checked my tyre pressures, and they were up to 55 psi. So I dropped 15 psi out, got them back down to road pressures when hot, and then set about just kind of enjoying the car and enjoying the day. If you've not seen my videos already, do watch them. The Focus RS is a very capable car. Mine is 100% standard as it left the factory. You know, the brakes, the tyres, standard Michelin Pilot Super Sports, completely standard. My driving on the day, as I said, front wheel drive is all I've ever driven on track before. Took some getting used to the traction that this thing has, the grip that it has. And throughout the day my driving was quite inconsistent. When I look back at my videos, I was still driving the circuit as if I was driving a front wheel drive car. I was far too busy with the steering and I wasn't using enough of the grip that the car has on the way into the corners, and I was kind of hesitating on the throttle a bit as well. I wasn't getting on it early enough and using the oversped rear wheels and the GKN Twinster system to help the car turn as you're powering through. I wasn't using that enough. Maybe that's why I didn't have any problem with the rear drive unit overheating, but I didn't once throughout the entire day, and it was a very hot day, I didn't once get the front wheel drive only warning. The RDU didn't shut down. So I've not had a problem that many others have reported. I'm not sure what circumstances would cause it to do that, but I was trying my best. The RDU didn't shut down for me. And when I look back now at the footage, I realised that I was braking far too much. In session 7, when I kind of got a hint that the brakes were on their way out, I eased off for a lap or so. And actually, when I'd eased off, when I turned into Madgwick, the first corner after the start-finish straight, I turned in at the highest speed all day long. Now, I always go on about how smooth is best, and everything you do, you should focus on being smooth. I wasn't really doing it on the track day, which frustrates me a little bit. I need to be smoother next time out. Eventually, though, my day came to a bit of a premature end. If you've seen my session 7 video, you'll have seen what happened. I lost the brakes. The brakes went on me halfway through that session. So I limped back to the pits, kind of considered my options, and there ended the day. So let's talk about tyres, brakes, and the costs of the day. Because I'd already done 16,000 miles on the road tyres, I didn't think there'd be a lot left on them. But as it turned out, there was still a good few thousand miles worth of tread left on them. Yeah, they got chewed up a bit, as you'd expect. The shoulders didn't wear, not overly so, despite a lot of people saying they would. They wore evenly, they wore really, really well, and they gripped so well throughout the day. So the tyres, standard Michelin Pilot Super Sports, I think were fantastic. While it was in having the tyres fitted, I asked the chaps there if they could have a look at the brakes, because I mentioned that I'd had some noise and it felt like I had metal on metal. I knew I'd have to do something, but while they had it up on the lift in the workshop, I asked them if I could have a look. So I left them fitting the tyres, and then they gave me a shout and said, we think you ought to come and have a look at this. The rear pads looked fine. There was still probably about 2-3 millimeters on them. The discs were okay. They looked all right. The front pads, it looked like there was plenty of material left on them. Yes, they'd got hot, or the paint had burned away. They changed colour a bit from the heat as well, but they looked okay. But looking down the top of the calipers, I could see that on both sides, it looked like I'd actually bent the backing plates on the brake pads. Then I went and picked up from Ford some genuine replacement discs, front and rear, and pads all round, and the fitting bolts. I also got, while I was there, an air filter and a new engine cover, because I'd cracked mine previously, and a pad spreading tool I bought from Euro Car Parts. That little lot cost me £743. Yeah, ouch. So with the air filter fitted, I then got on with the rear brakes. Just wanted to have a more thorough look than I'd been able to when it was in with the tyre fitters. And looking at them and having a real good crawl over them, they all looked okay. Good few thousand miles left. So the rear pads that I'd bought and the rear discs I didn't need to fit, so I've saved those for another day. Then it was time for the front brakes to see exactly what I'd managed to do to them. Now, as expected, I'd worn them right down. There looked to be about 1 millimetre, maybe 1.5 millimetres remaining, and compared to a new set, clearly there was not much left. All 4 backing plates were bent. None of them are straight anymore, quite severely so. But on one of them, it was seriously deformed from the pistons, from the caliper. It had kind of punched a couple of indentations in the back of the pad. I've never ever seen that before. I'd be interested to know if anyone else has. I've never seen that before. I've been doing track days for a long, long time and active on forums for probably approaching 15 years now. I've never seen deformation of brake pads like I've seen on mine. So clearly they got really, really hot. But that deformation was only on the front left caliper though, not on the front right. So why did that happen? What caused that? Are the brakes good enough for track work? should I upgrade next time I go out on track? Firstly, why did it happen? Well, there's a number of factors at play, I think. One of which was the ambient temperature of the day. It was a really, really hot day, at least for the UK anyway. I picked up the temperatures from the videos of my dials, the dashboard, and this is how they changed throughout the day and where they were on each of the sessions that I did. Another factor is my confidence in the car and how I was, getting to grips with it and dialing in. I was certainly leaning on it more and using more of the brakes as the day went on, putting more energy into them and putting more heat into them. Another factor is the material on the pads. I started the day with the backing plates and 7mm of material on them. By the end of the day, I was down to 1mm or less, almost zero on one of them. So the material of the pad, that absorbs the heat, and with less friction material there to absorb it and dissipate it, it was going straight through to the backing plate. So that was also a factor, I think. Not only are those factors at play here, I also think just the fact that the circuit is a clockwise circuit is the reason why the deformation of the pad only happened on the front left caliper. The front left wheel is the one that does all the work at Goodwood, so the heat going into the tyre and the wheel will have been much, much greater on the front left side. So as well as all of the other factors, the ambient temperature, how much I was using the brakes and how much material were on the pads, even when sat stationary in the pits, the front left caliper and pads were just effectively sat inside an oven because the front left wheel and tyre and hub assembly and caliper will have been so hot. And lastly, and I think this is the main reason they failed, I just didn't give them enough time to rest in between sessions. If you look at the times of my sessions throughout the day, I only left it 15 minutes in between sessions from sessions 6 and 7. The car was sat in bright sunlight. I didn't park it in the shade as I had done earlier during the day. The minimum I'd left it on other sessions was about 30 minutes, and mostly it was kind of an hour to an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half. But on between sessions 6 and 7, 15 minutes. So the brakes, the caliper, the wheel had no time to cool whatsoever. So using all of those factors, the ambient temperature, the pad material, the effort I was putting into the brakes, and the time left between the sessions, I threw all that data into Excel, kind of crunched a formula in there, and spat this out, which shows with an assumed cool down rate in between each session just why they failed. And I think it's quite obvious that with the energy going into the reducing pad material and the lack of cool down in between, it's quite clear to see how from my calculated relative pad temperature, how they just spiked right at the end there and got way above and way beyond what normal use or normal track use would do for them. Are the brakes good enough for track use? Absolutely they are. Watch my videos all the way through, right up to the point of failure, which only failed because I'd worn away the pad material. But up to that point, I was threshold braking every single time. You could hear the tyres howling. I was right on the limit of the grip that the tyres had. And it was the tyres that were the limiting factor, not the pad material itself. Not once throughout the entire day until session 7 did I get a hint of fade. And that was standing on them really hard, generating enough heat to deform the backing plates. I got no fade at all. None. Nothing. Yes, they wear out. Yes, if you don't give them enough of a rest in between sessions and you only have a little bit of material left, you could do what I do, which is deform them. But the pad material itself and the brakes, absolutely up to the task. What about brake fluid? Well, as I said, my brake fluid is 14 months old. It performed really well all day. I had a solid pedal, a consistent pedal. It was very firm. It was where I'd expect it to be every single time I went for the brakes. And it was only right at the end when I'd put enough heat into the brakes without allowing a cool down. It was only right at the end, after I'd kind of eased off and reduced the much needed airflow through through the wheel arch and the calipers to cool the brakes and discs down. It was only then that I suddenly got a long pedal. So that was the point at which I managed to boil the fluid. But the fluid itself, in the standard brake system, that's fine. That's up to the task as well, as far as I'm concerned. Taking all of this into account, what have I learned about the brakes? What I've learned is that they're up to the task. For me, in this car, as standard, driving the way that I drive, they're good enough. I will make sure next time that I've got fresh fluid. I will make sure I've got new pads all round, so I don't have the reduction of the pad material being a factor as well, and putting all that heat into just the backing plates. I'll also take an infrared temperature gun, which I forgot to take this time, frustratingly. I wanted to see how hot everything got, but I'm going to make sure I take it next time, because then I'll be able to monitor and see just how quickly things are recovering in between sessions. The front discs were okay. They had some minor scoring, but I was only braking very, very lightly after the failure, up to the point that I managed to get the car up on stands and check the pads out and get them out. The standard discs are fine, so I got away without having to fit the new discs that I bought, so they're also tucked away and saved for another day. And with all of that done, and with my wheels with nice new rubber on them, I set about giving them a thorough clean again, inside and out, because they pick up so much muck on a track day. I gave them a thorough clean inside and out, got them back on the car, and then since then I've just been enjoying driving the car again, and it performs and is still performing, and the brakes are performing absolutely fine. What did the day cost? Now this is the painful bit. Throughout the day I did 121 miles on track. I did 7 warm-up out laps, 7 cool-down in laps. I had 14 laps where my pace was compromised because of following cars and traffic, and I had 23 laps where it was like I had Goodwood all to myself. They were totally clear. I did 51 laps in total, and the costs were the track day itself, which includes a really nice lunch from Goodwood. That was £349. Insurance for me for the day was £177. That was giving me £28,500 of insured cover, and that came with an excess of £2,350. I used £115 worth of fuel. That was an average across the day of 6.3 miles to the gallon. Now, assuming I used a quarter of the usable tread on the tyres, 25%, then the cost of rubber for the day was £172. And I would factor in a complete set of front brake pads. From Ford, that was £165. And the rear pads, that was £45, assuming that I used half of them. That gives a grand total for the day of £1,024. And that works out at £20 a lap, or £8 a mile. Yeah, it's an expensive hobby. I've also got here a quick update on my cost of ownership. Now, I haven't included the track day cost or the cost of the track day insurance, but all of the consumables, all of the money that I spent at Ford on the discs and pads, I've included here, even though I've not used them yet. The money's spent. I'll get that money back another time when I fit them. That's factored in here. And yes, that total is, in a year and 2 months, just over £17,000. I don't care though. I just absolutely love driving this thing. Lastly, today I was meant to be meeting a friend, Pete, with his Mark II Focus RS, but this weather put paid to that. We're hoping to do that tomorrow. I'm finally going to get to drive a Mark II Focus RS. I'm really looking forward to that. Get to see if all the hype is justified, and if, as everyone keeps telling me, I should have bought a Mark II. Pete's going to let me drive his car and drive it properly, and I'm going to make sure he gets a good go in this and feels what the Mark III is all about. I hope you like this video. If If you did, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Next time I see you, I will be behind the wheel of a Mark II. Can't wait for that. Thank you very much for watching.